Today I'm going to be doing a demonstration using Liquitex Pouring Medium and showing you how you can paint a subject over that pouring medium. Hi, I'm Lisa, the artist behind Lachri Fine Art. For today's demonstration, I am working on a wood cradle board. I had a bunch of them on sale recently at Jerry's Artorama, so I thought these would be perfect for the pouring medium. I'm using Liquitex Pouring Medium with Liquitex soft-bodied acrylics for the background, and then for the subject, I am using Liquitex Glazing Medium with the heavy-bodied paints for the bird and the branch. If you are supporters over on Patreon, the real-time version of this painting is available for you now, so make sure to head over and check that out. Now let's move on to this tutorial. The first thing I would do different if I were to do this again, or when I do this again on these wood cradle boards, I'm going to use clear gesso on them first because I was able to see slight ridges in the wood where this kind of soaked into it. I don't know what I was thinking why I did not gesso that first, but that's going to happen next time for sure. So I start by putting some of the pouring medium into these bowls, and then I put a single drop of the Liquitex soft-bodied acrylic paints into the bowl. A single drop goes a very long way. The reason that I'm using the soft-bodied paints instead of my usual Liquitex basics is that the soft-bodied have so much pigment in them. A little bit, like I said, goes a very, very long way. The Liquitex basics would require more paint. So I mixed parchment in this section. The next color is going to be my unbleached titanium white mixed in with the pouring medium. Then I'm going to use some red and brown mixed into this, and you can see it's not as messy as, at least as much as I thought it was going to be. When I first started using this, I thought it would pour everywhere. I would end up with it all over the floor. It really wasn't a problem. I just put a plastic kind of a drop cloth type thing underneath it, and that protects everything just fine. I'm using a palette knife to drip some of the different colors onto this and then to swirl them around a bit. Adding some more in there. And this is one of those things that you just want to play with. You're not going to be super controlled with it. You can have a general plan, but it's going to kind of spill around and pour in ways you might not have expected. You can see I'm pouring here along the edge, or smearing it along the edge, because it doesn't just flood over the edges of the canvas. So I just want to make sure that I do have some of that mixture on the edges so that I don't have the wood showing there. Now I'm mixing more, putting some of the light color back on top. Now I ended up with so much of this on the cradle board. There was a lot of product, much more so than what I've used in the past. And then once I got to this point, I could kind of smear it around, just pour it. You see how it'll change its shape completely depending on how I let it pour off of that cradle board. Using a palette knife to smudge along the edges so that I don't have big, huge drips there. And I'm going to drip some more color onto this. And you can just repeat this process until you get it how you want. And in this case, using the cradle board was a really good way to go because I had so much product on there. If I was using a lighter weight canvas, it'll sort of pool in the middle. It'll start to stretch because it is very heavy. So by using this cradle board, there was no sagging in the middle. Dripping some more on there. Now, one thing that I did on here that I ended up really liking is taking just plain pouring medium. After I had a ton of product on the cradle board, I took clear, just the pouring medium there. You can see it's dripping onto that sort of a foggy white. I dripped that all over the cradle board, and what happened is when it dried, those areas were somewhat clear and you could see through them to the color that was underneath. It gave it a very almost marbled look. I will probably use that technique with just the clear pouring medium on top of color in everything I do from here on out. It gave it so much more depth because, again, you're looking through that clear color into what's underneath when that dries. I really, really liked the effect that that gave. And this was especially noticeable over the light areas that I dripped this onto. I ended up with sort of rings or little circles where those drips fell. It just caused a really cool texture. And I didn't use a lot. It did not take much to get that look. And this is not super, super thin or super runny. It's even with using mostly pouring medium. And it gets thick very, very quickly. You do want to make sure you've got it on a level surface because it will start to run as it dries. Either that or just what I do, because my surface is not perfectly level, I just keep coming and checking on it to make sure it's not running too much off one side or the other. Adding more of the light there, swirling it just a little with a palette knife. Once I get enough of the color on here, I'm just going to tip this to the side and let it run off the edge. This is where having that plastic drop cloth was really important. Adding more of that clear there. You can see it's already starting to puddle off the edge there. So if I didn't want this to run off the edge, I would need to make sure that this was more level. And I just stick pieces of paper towel under it to level things out to make sure it's not dripping too far to the edge. You can see as we pour it down, you start to get a very, very different look. And you can continue pouring to get larger shapes, however you want. So there is what I ended up with. I then drew my bird out on a piece of tracing paper and then used black transfer paper from Low Cornell and transferred my image onto the canvas. The black showed up perfectly fine, so I was able to see all of my lines. If I tried to draw this with a graphite pencil, it would not have shown up. So using the tracing and transfer paper works really, really well. And you don't want to use water. Normally, I use water when I thin my acrylics. When you're painting over the pouring medium, if you do that, the paint isn't going to bind to that pouring medium. This is a very, very slick surface. It's like painting on glass. So first, you have no tooth. So that already presents a little bit of a challenge. If you are working with water, it's probably not going to stick at all anyway. But even if you got it to stick, it's not going to be very archival. It's not going to bond to or bind to that pouring medium. So it is very important to use glazing medium instead of water in this case when you are working over pouring medium. I'm drawing in the branch. I want to let my brush strokes show here, and you can see I'm slightly curving all of those strokes so that it does look like the branch is curved and not just flat. Using unbleached titanium white for the highlight there, which is the same color, one of the same main colors I used in the background. Starting to block in the bird. And with this guy, I'm not going super realistic. I just wanted something very bold on top of this background, given that the background was so bold. I needed it to be bold, and I needed it to be very, very dark to really show up against that background. Now the finished bird, he's a bit dull compared to the pouring medium. The pouring medium has a very, very high gloss. This, with the heavy bodied paints and the Liquitex glazing mediums, there is a little bit of a gloss, but not anything like what the pouring medium will give you. So what I will do when this is completely dry is go over it with a high gloss varnish, and it evens everything out so everything has the same even gloss. Adding some white for highlights to brighten that up even more on that branch, and then coming back through with some shadows. Again, keeping those brush strokes very curved. I'm adding some detailing on the bird, but again, not going to go crazy trying to get every feather in there. I wanted him to be very, very bold, almost like a stamp, just really blocked in. And I mixed unbleached titanium white in with my phthalo blue and black to get this kind of bluish gray color. Few more highlights there. And that smaller brush that you see me using is a synthetic hog-haired liner brush. The other brushes that I'm using for this are mostly Taklon bristled brushes in flats, filberts, and rounds. Getting more of the shadows here. I want this to be really dark, very, very bold on that outer edge because, like I said before, that background is just so bold. I mean, I wasn't sure what I was even going to paint over it that would stand out enough to work. So I played around in Photoshop to come up with a design that would work for this, and what I found was just nearly black, very, very dark. I was tempted just to do a silhouette so that it really stood out. This guy worked fine though. Few more details in there, letting my brushstroke show intentionally on this one. You see, I'm not doing a lot of blending things out. Came on top with a green gold or gold green, I don't remember which color, there for the branch, and then went back over that with a bit more unbleached titanium white. That helped it to stand out a bit more from that background. using some transparent mixing white for some of the highlights on the back of the bird there. Mixed that in with that black and phthalo blue that I was using earlier just to lighten it a bit. And that is it for this guy. If you have any questions, let me know. And I will see you guys tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time for the acrylic painting live stream. Being that I have not put the varnish on this yet, I want to show you what it looks like before you varnish it. You can see that there is a bit of a difference between the paint and the pouring medium there, and you can also see how shiny that pouring medium is. Once I varnish this, everything will be nice and even. Have you subscribed yet? If not, there is a handy button right there. It is round and orange with a subscribe button that will help you to keep up to date with all 5 of my new art videos every single week. It's a lot of videos. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Actually, no, I will see you guys tonight for the live stream.